Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So Michael Jackson's longtime engineer, Bruce Swedien, has passed away. So because of my research that I've been doing through my investigation of Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson being Michael Jackson's actual parents, because I've done that investigation, I've found out so many things. And so Bruce Swedien, because I've done my investigation, I heard this story about when Bruce Swedien met Michael Jackson, okay? And then the guy that was telling me when they met was the guy back here in this photograph here, the guy in the back with the white hat on. That's Marshall Thompson, okay? So this is right after Michael Jackson had passed away. If you like read on there and stuff and see what this is at the BET Awards, it tells you what it is. And it's Don Lemon. He's asking him some questions and stuff, and you could tell he's asking about Michael Jackson had just passed away, and they're talking about the funerals. It's probably within a week, I think, is what happened. But I remember when this happened, and because specifically of this reason right here, it's like, okay, well, I think when this happened, like in real life, when this happened, I remember it shocked me, and I didn't know who this guy was. Okay. So this is one of the things about the investigation and how with people think that I just like all this information that I know. People think that I have all this information and then I built a conspiracy. That's not what happened. Is that I saw something, I then did an investigation throughout that, which I then developed all of this information, and then now I can tell you, I can relate this information back to you because of that stuff, you know? So that's how it worked. It's not that I have all this information, now I'm creating a conspiracy. So I'll tell you how it happened in real life. So in real life at this time, I'm not thinking Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's mother. That the funeral hasn't even happened yet, you know? So and so when right here but I remember when this happened, because like I said, I was a Michael Jackson fan, so I was watching all these kinds of things like this and stuff. So I remember when this happened, and I remember just thinking like one of those things like, Joe, freaking Joe, right? It's like, damn, Joe. It's like, damn, Joe, right? Damn, really? So here, let me play this part for you right here, and because you'll hear him introduce him. He says, this is Marshall, right? Listen, that's Marshall Thompson, because everything I'm going to show you after this is basically related to Marshall Thompson and stuff. Right? So here, let me show you this.
Do you know anything, Mr. Jackson, about funeral arrangements? Have you had time to...
Yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet. Yeah, but we're working on that.
Yeah.
This is Marshall here. I want you to...
Thank you. How is, you said your wife is, what about Janet and the rest of the family, the daughters and everything?
They're all doing fine. But I want to make this statement. This is a real good statement here. Marshall and I we own the record company called...
Ranch Records. Okay, it's true about Blu-ray technology, and that's his next step.
And that's the next step. There had been
okay, so like I'm saying, I remember when that happened in the real world. It's like, okay, he's asking him, can you tell me about the funeral? You know, he's talking about Michael Jackson and stuff, right? And then Joe's like, so like I'm saying, when this really happened, I remember when this happened, when Michael Jackson died. This is like within like the week after Michael Jackson died. So I remember this. And so I'm saying this, I remember when this happened, and I did not know who Marshall Thompson was at that time. I didn't know that he's Marshall Thompson of the band, the Shy Lights. I didn't know any of that stuff, right? And then so this is the reason I'm showing you, though, is I'm showing you that that's who's with Joe Jackson right after Michael Jackson died. This is one of the people that's right there with Joe Jackson, and not only is he with Joe Jackson is introducing him and telling him, hey, tell him about this business venture that we're invested into. And he's like, this is what we're doing. We got something with Blu-ray technology, and that's his next move, you know? And so like I'm saying, I remember when it happened, because it was like, Jesus, Joe. He's like, tell me about Michael's funeral. Okay, well, I don't know anything about that, but let me tell you about this new business deal I got. This is real good news. Shit. Oh my God. Like I said, so that's what I'm saying about being a fan for a long period of time. It's like this here, I remember when this happened. Okay, this happened right after Michael Jackson died. I remember when this happened. So there's a thing about like where a lot of people that are younger fans and stuff, it's like they don't have this information back to draw from and stuff, right? But I do. So it's one of these things that I started doing my investigation after this happened. About 6 months after that's when my investigation started, right? And so when I started doing my investigation, one of the things that then I finally came across a really good video about, and so the video is this guy Tom Maros, okay? So this page here is the page of Tom Maros, and he's a really interesting guy. He's got a real great knowledge of rock and roll history, and I think he actually has a connection to the rock and roll history, rock and roll Hall of Fame. I think he's got some connection to that because, like I said, because of my investigation and all this stuff, if you go find, I think I found on this guy's page, actually, if you see, he has a video of Smokey Robinson being inducted. It's either, no, I think it's the whole band, The Miracles. It's not just Smokey. It's the whole band, The Miracles, being inducted into the Hall of Fame, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but it's the day before, and they're having like a dinner gathering, and Tom Maros there is speaking at this gathering, this event, and Smokey's there, and all the band and stuff, right? So it's one of the things that's like, through my stuff, I've seen Tom Maros. He was right there with Smokey the day before they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, and Tom Maros was speaking in front of all these people. You know, one of these things is, he's an interesting person too, but I don't know enough about him and all these stuff, but he's got a great deal of knowledge. I did try to make contact with him once, I did, but he didn't give me enough credibility and stuff, and so whatever, so I didn't make my connection with him and stuff. But anyways, that's whose video this is, and he does interviews, and he does good interviews, but I'm going to point out one thing in this interview to you also, where he was about to give a great piece of information, and then Tom Maros stopped him and darted it off another way, and it's like, oh, I wanted that piece of information so bad, right? And so this is, in this video, this guy talks about that he introduced the Jackson 5 to Bruce Swedien before the Jackson 5 are introduced to Bobby Taylor, which is kind of like him. He also is kind of doing that too. And so I'm going to show you a lot through this. Like, so this video, I'll leave a link in my description box to this actual video, but it's actually called Marshall Thompson Tells Tom the History of the Shylights. That's the name of this video. And in the history of the Shylights, the Jackson 5 come in. So a lot of people don't know that Jackson 5, this is a big deal. And like I said, it's such a big deal that when you saw Joe Jackson, right after Michael Jackson passed away, and he was getting invested into a new business venture, who was he getting invested with was Marshall Thompson. He was right there with him at the BET Awards. I mean, okay, that's what I'm saying. He was an important person to that kind of a point. So now I've got this kind of, there's a lot of stuff here. I'm not sure exactly which way it's organized and stuff, so I could make a little mistake, but let's go ahead and go through this now, and I think I've got a pretty good setup here. So this is going to be Marshall Thompson explaining some things, but he's going to tell you about the Michael Jackson meeting Bruce Swedien at this record studio in Chicago, which you see there, it says Universal Recordings Group. I think it says, or what does it say? Corp. It says Universal Recording Corp, okay? And so he says in this, he says a lot of people, he mentions, oh, a lot of people used to record in that. So this is one of the things about my story, is that I say that Joe Jackson, being the person that what he is, throughout his lifetime, somehow in his past, in his early beginnings, when Joe Jackson was trying to live his life, okay? When Joe Jackson was trying to be somebody, when he was still young, and he was trying to be a boxer, and then he was trying to be a musician and stuff, and he's out there partying and hanging out with all the girls and having a good life and stuff, right? Being the young guy. And because Joe Jackson is the same age as Berry Gordy. What I'm saying is that when Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy were young, before we get up until the age where they start to develop the Jackson 5, okay? I'm saying before Joe has all the kids. Before Joe has all the kids. This is what I'm saying. Before Joe has the kids, he's trying to be a boxer. Joe's trying to be a musician. He's out there living the life. Okay, in which that life, Berry Gordy's doing the same thing. And he's the same age. So that's what I'm going to show you here through Marshall Thompson, through the experience of Joe Jackson and Marshall Thompson. I'm going to show you that Joe Jackson could have had a very much similar experience in his life earlier with Berry Gordy. there could be a history there that nobody ever knows about. But when you actually look up the real history, what you find out is that they're the same age. They're both fighting in the Golden Gloves at the same time, which like people don't know is like Berry Gordy dropped out of high school to fight in the Golden Gloves. Like, because people think about him as like, oh, he's raised in such a good family, such a strong business-minded person, and he went to work at Ford, and he learned how to do the business industry the right way, you know? He learned how to really do it right as an industry, you know? And so that's how they always talk like how Berry Gordy's like all positive, everything always good, right? But they don't tell you he dropped out of high school to try to become a boxer, you know? It's like, that's like kind of shady, scandalous. That's like different than what you think of the businessman. When you think about a guy dropping out of high school, I'm going to go be a boxer, I'm going to fight. He wants to fight, he wants to kick people's ass. Shit. The real story's so crazy. So, like I said, when I get into these videos too like this, I want to just go on and on. So it's like, oh, I got to stop. When I start telling stories, like, it's like, oh, I got to stop because I need to get into the other story, but I'm trying to make the video about, right? Bruce Swedien and stuff is really how this video is being generated and stuff, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just let this get playing and stuff here. And yeah, let's go ahead and just let this, but yeah. So what I was mainly saying though is that the story of what I'm building here through Marshall Thompson and Joe Jackson's relationship is showing you that Joe Jackson could have developed the same relationship in the previous years to Berry Gordy, and that's how the Michael Jackson gets given to the Jackson from Berry Gordy. That's what I'm saying is how it all develops and stuff. And I'm showing you how a very similar relationship has taken place with Marshall Thompson and Joe Jackson. And I'm going to show you how Marshall Thompson's actually connected to the Berry Gordy stuff too. It's crazy and stuff, right? I got a lot to show you. So, and then Bruce Swedien. And here's the thing with Bruce Swedien. Bruce Swedien is in this picture. He's right in the middle of it. Check this out.
And where was the studio? We was at on Walden Street in Chicago. Universal Studio on Walden in Chicago. On the second floor, right there on Walden. Now they recorded for everybody. That's where I introduced the Jackson 5 in the studio with Bruce Swedien. Now wait a minute.
One of the Shy-Lights, the leader of the Shy-Lights, Marshall Thompson. Marshall asked me to go and look at this kid that was on stage at the time I walked in. And I went up there and that was this little bitty guy about like that.
So where there's Bobby Taylor. So the people that know the real history of like Michael Jackson coming to Motown and stuff, what I'm saying is that there's a lot more going on. There's a lot more going on that we don't really know, and these people all actually kind of know each other, and when you actually find the history of these people, you find out there's a lot bigger history with these direct people who are directly involved with the story of what I'm telling you, how this conspiracy all played out. You find out that there's the few key players, but you find out how they all met and how everything developed, and you find out there's a lot more that they all kind of know each other. It's weird. And then it's just a crazy thing, but the thing that nobody knows is that Joe Jackson is part of that scene. Even though when he's at the steel mill, he's out of it. He's out of the scene. But in reality, he is part of that scene. He's a known guy and he knows people. That's what people don't really know. That Joe Jackson had a history, and I'm going to show you here. And through that, that's why he was able to push it back out and do the things too, because he legitimately had his own history of his own. Plus then when he knew he had his connection to Berry Gordy, that's how everything started, is what I'm saying. Is how I'm building to all this stuff.
And he was spinning around like James Brown.
Ooh, hey, ooh. You introduced Jackson 5. Yeah, I put him to Bruce Swedien. Michael and them used to come down to our session. They listened to him and Joe and them listen to our session. So I told Michael said, man, I love that engineer we had. Bruce Swedien. So that's how he met Bruce Swedien. Michael, just a little kid. That's right.
Yeah, so see what I'm saying? So, see, Bruce Swedien worked with Michael Jackson in his golden age and stuff, right? But so, and it was through Quincy Jones and stuff, and so Bruce Swedien would be like the guy adjusting the sounds and he's the engineer. He's the guy recording everything, right? Where like Quincy Jones, from what I understand, he's a musician, he's a producer, he's making music. He makes melodies and does stuff, where the Bruce Swedien is the guy recording everything and setting the mics and okay, so Bruce Swedien was like, he's right there with them. It's like, those are like three of the main guys. It's like Michael, Quincy Jones, and the guy that is the other guy that's right there that nobody knows about because his job is, it's not as credible and recognized, you know, is the Bruce Swedien guy, right? It's like he's the big part of it and shit, right? So he's right there with them through all that stuff. But what you come to find out is that Michael meets Bruce Swedien through Marshall Thompson before he's introduced to Bobby Taylor. So that's what I'm saying is, like, when you hear the real story about how it plays out in history, is you find out that Michael Jackson was just a kid, like he said, and he met Bruce Swedien before he meets Bobby Taylor and goes to Motown and stuff, right? So that's what I'm talking about, these connections about Joe Jackson, right? So Joe Jackson was already connected with Marshall Thompson of the Shy-Lights, introducing his band and Michael Jackson to Bruce Swedien before any of the Motown stuff has started, you know? There's all this other stuff going on, and these people are connected. I'm going to show you here that how, like Marshall Thompson, he's connected directly back to everybody that actually ends up being key players and shit, right? And so, like, some of these videos, like this video here, I'm gonna play it on right now, but I might not have what I want here. It might be on another piece, right? So let's play a little more here and see what happens. Let's see what happens. See.
He loved the sound. He loved the sound that we were doing Coldest Day of My Life and so on. You are thinking, what are these young kids doing hanging around? I mean, I got work to do. Right. But then what did you say? Oh, I told Joe, I think how I really met Joe down. We did a song that Bobby Taylor used to sing. Who is?
Okay, so right there, see what he says? He says, you know what? How I think I really met Joe? And see, this is what I'm telling you. Right here, when Marshall on his own goes to tell you about the story about the Jackson 5s, the very beginning. So the very beginning for the beginning of that story was going to be how he met Joe Jackson, not how he met Michael Jackson. He's telling you how he met Joe, because this is what I'm telling you. Joe is somebody. Joe Jackson is the guy. He's an important guy here in how all of this stuff developed. And what I'm saying is that Joe Jackson, how he's showing you that he's connected and has these relationships, and how Marshall Thompson is recognizing Joe as the instrumental person and who he met. It wasn't when he met Michael Jackson was the big thing. It's when he met Joe. And that's what he was saying right here, right? And he was going to tell you how he met Joe. That's what I'm telling you about the guy, the Tom Maros, the guy doing the interview. He's not interviewing the same thing, trying to get the information I am. And so then right now he like totally switches the thing, the conversation. Marshall Thompson's about to tell you how he met Joe, you know? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is like one of those things. It's like, oh, I need that information. I want to hear exactly. Tell me how you met Joe. How did you actually meet Joe? Right, so this was good, but what happened was then he dodged off of it, and it takes it over here. Watch.
Bobby Taylor, the Super Vancouvers. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers, they were up from Northwest United States. That's right. And Tommy Chong. Yeah. And they had a big hit. What was their big hit in '68? Does your mama know about? So Bobby Taylor is at Motown. You're not at Motown. You're working with Curtis Mayfield. You're working at Brunswick. Jerry Butler, the Impressions. How does Bobby Taylor get to meet you, and how do you introduce the Jackson 5 to Bobby Taylor?
See, like, now he's gonna, hey, if you don't know, like, take care of me. Just that's the thing. Like, people don't know. It's like it's incredibly difficult for me to have the time to make these videos now. It's incredibly difficult because I'm so busy with time, and because the people that know me know that I take care of my dad. So if like you hear, right, if you hear any weird noises in the back or things going on, it's that because my dad, and see, now it's at night too. And so it's like, I couldn't make the video. I've been trying to, like, I've been building this video for a few hours. It took me a while actually to do it, and then I'm so busy. So it actually took time, and I almost shut it off a couple times because it was like, it was probably like 5-6 hours ago I kind of started trying to build this video. And then instead of just clearing it off, I just kind of left it there and I just put it together. I built it. And then, but then it's like one of those things I'm building. It's like, oh no, this is going to be over an hour. And so like I'm saying, but like I'm so busy with my dad now and trying to make these videos. It's just, he might make noises and stuff. But so the people don't know that that's going on. That's what's going on and stuff. But the people that know, they already know and stuff, right? And so see, then that makes me lose my train of thought. It's so difficult. It's so hard for me and stuff. And so, I'm gonna rewind a couple seconds to see what he was just talking about right there, because I forgot what he was saying.
And how do you introduce the Jackson 5 to Bobby Taylor?
Okay, I was going to say, see, now he's going to give you some good information here, but you don't get the story about how he met Joe Jackson, okay? See, he was going to give you that story, but then Tom Merrills then turned it, and then he turns it into a whole thing about how he meets Bobby Taylor, right? But this is, through here is some good information too, because like I'm saying, the Bobby Taylor is the big piece, right? He's the piece that is supposed to be the guy that brings Michael to into the Jacksons through the Susan DePass and stuff, who gets the interview. And then I'm going to show you some stuff that they've got information here linked up to that. I'm going to show you more and stuff. And so it's all linked up and show, but it's real interesting and stuff, because now that's what I'm going to show you, is that this guy on his own, he knows Bobby Taylor. Okay, so he's got connections to Bobby Taylor, and actually it's going to go much more, because his band, he's actually signed to Brunswick. Okay, so there's much more going on. I'm going to explain it as we go.
Well, what happened is Bobby come out with a smash hit before us, and he was headlining the show at the Regal Theater. So
just really quick right there, that's the Regal Theater in Chicago, because it's such a big thing, and that's what one thing, the big things about what I show is, what I'm trying to tell people too, is that Michael Jackson is in Gary, Indiana. Okay, so you think Gary, Indiana, where's that? That's nowhere. It's in nowhere land, right? But in reality, it's right below Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, the big town, Chicago. And Chicago has a big black music scene because of like Chess Records is one of the big ones and stuff. But Chicago, and they've got the Regal Theater, right? The famous Regal Theater. So this is a big part of the black music scene. So, and on here on the marquee up there at the Regal Theater, they're showing a lot of the bands. A lot of these are Motown acts, and so like up there is the Miracles. One of the bands that shows up there is the Miracles. So in Chicago, the Miracles, that's Smokey Robinson playing at the Regal. And so this is part of what I'm showing you, is that Regal Theater is a place where Diana Ross and the Supremes and the Miracles, they played there. Okay, they played there on their own path to get famous and stuff, right? But so when they went to go play there, Michael was right down in Gary, Indiana. It's one of those things that's like, we don't know in our life that it's like, did they ever go up and go watch it? Like when Michael, well, now I was thinking about it, it's like, well, no. Okay, so like, you know, when he was at 5 years old, from 5 to say 9. Well, it's tricky. Those few years when they're out there all running around, but when they're running around in that scene, the Miracles are in that scene, and Diana Ross, they're in the same scene. it's crazy shit, you know? And then there's the crazy stuff, like, because there's Stevie Wonder on the marquee, and he's actually related to the Jacksons, and he's on Motown. And then that's what I'm saying too. Like, so here's Stevie Wonder, right? Stevie Wonder is related to the Jacksons. Did the Jacksons ever go watch their family member, Stevie Wonder, playing on the bill where the Miracles would have been playing on the bill, where the Miracles, that's Smokey Robinson, where that's Michael Jackson's actual father? That's what I'm saying about the connections and about how these people interacted and how they encountered with each other through Michael Jackson's life and stuff. We don't know what actually happened here, and we don't know what Joe Jackson was actually doing and stuff. Hold on, sit down, whoa. Okay, sit down. No, sit back down, sit down, right here. Okay, sit down. There you go. Okay, sit down. Okay, whoa. Okay, so so my dad started moving around and stuff. I had to get him to sit back down. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm actually working. I'm actually taking care of my dad right now. I'm not just, and it's like, it's just fucking crazy shit. You know, I barely have fucking time to do anything. And these videos, they take time and stuff. There's so much information, and I try and relate the information as best I can, but there's a lot. There's a lot there.
Like his co-star with Bobby Taylor. But I've been running the Jackson 5 all over Chicago, playing them little clubs.
Okay, it's right there when he's saying he's been running the Jackson 5. Okay, so Marshall Thompson right there, he just said, I've been running the Jackson 5 all over Chicago in the little clubs, okay? It was him. He was like so this is before the Bobby Taylor and the Motown stuff, right? So when you hear about and he's saying in Chicago, the little clubs in Chicago, this is not the little club in Gary, Indiana. This is the little clubs in Chicago. So like the little places you hear about them playing all these little clubs, okay? Well, Marshall Thompson's from Chicago. He was the insider guy. He's a guy that somehow Joe Jackson developed a friendship with, and that's what I'm saying is like, I wish he would have told that story. How'd they actually develop the friendship? So now, here's one thing I want to show you here. This is a marquee at the Regal, right? And if you look on there, it says Battle of the Groups, and so there's the Jackson 5, but then there's like the Vibrations, the Esquires, and the Artistics. So those are the groups that were battling against each other, is what it looks. Then you got the headline group. So whoever wins the Battle of the Groups gets to play with the headliners. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers. Dyke and the Blazers, I don't know, but the other one's Marshall. It's Marshall Thompson and the Shylights, okay? Because they end up just dropping off the Marshall and just going by the Shylights. That's the but Marshall Thompson, that's the guy that was talking right here, that's saying all this stuff, right? So there's the group billing, right? And if it says up there, it says Friday, July 12th. And then it says down there, talent show Wednesday, plus on screen it says July 17th, first run hit on the bottom right. And on the top left it says 10 days starting, So this event, that whatever's taking place here, right? But so let's say the first date it shows up there is July 12th. Okay, and then it says it's going to run for 10 days, and so it's going to take place for a while before this, and then, so that's what I'm saying, is like, when you look at the date right here, is July 12th, and then at the bottom there it says, I don't think you can see it because I might have it blocked up, but it does say it's in 1968 also. So I'm going to show you what this is meaning too. But what I'm showing you here is that, so the Bobby Taylor is the band that gets known for taking the Jacksons to Motown and stuff, right? Because he's supposed to have, he takes them Susan DePass and they get there and stuff, right? But it's like, would he really have the connection to do it? Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, and that's a big thing about my story. It's like, would Bobby Taylor have the power to take the Jacksons? Like, he calls up Susan DePass to his department, so I think that's in Chicago. See, that's the thing what I'm saying with Chicago. I think Bobby Taylor's in Chicago. That's where his apartment was at when he met them and stuff here. And then, but he's only got that short time when he meets Susan DePass, and then they run right to Motown. This is how quick it is. So let me show you here. So, like I said, Friday, just July 12th, right? July 17th. And then right here, let me see. I don't want to move the camera. But you guys can see right here where I'm at. This is the, here, actually, let me click on it and see if it... Okay, so the Jacksons 5 pre-1969. And then, here, I can do it like this. I'm trying to do it without focusing out so I can keep the other stuff in focus. But so see right there, it says Jackson 5 Motown Audition. It says the 23rd of, it's 7, which is July of 1968, okay? So the actual first video recording of the Jacksons, the one that's the first video recording of the Jacksons at Motown, the famous video, hold on, sit down. Okay, relax. See, that's the thing too. It's like it's hard for me to make. I don't usually make videos at nighttime because it's like at nighttime it's getting late. So my dad gets when we're dealing with what I'm dealing with, my dad gets kind of dumber at night. He starts to get really dumb and stuff. He's not good. He wants to go to bed, but there's stuff but there's reasons why I'm keeping up, because I have to keep him up for certain reasons. Because if he goes to bed too early, then he'll wake up at like midnight, and then he'll be up from like midnight to 3 o'clock, and I'll be sleeping. He'll be wandering around. It causes problems. So I have to deal with all kinds of stuff, right? So there's. Like I said, I just wanted to get this video made. This is how difficult it is for me to make a video, though. It's incredibly difficult now. That's why I'm not making videos. It's not because I don't want to, but then I seen the thing about Bruce Swedien, and I was like, I got to make a video about the Bruce Swedien and talk about all this stuff and stuff, right? But it's like, okay, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to take care of my dad. It's freaking so difficult. And it's so crazy that I actually get yelled at by Michael Jackson fans who think that I'm trying to be a YouTuber. How lame would I be to be some loser who's sitting here taking care of their father who's dealing with fucking Alzheimer's, fucking real serious shit, right? And I'm going to sit here and try and tell you a Michael Jackson story because I'm trying to be a YouTuber to get views because I want to be a star. Oh my God. It's like, dude, you can't have a concept of how difficult the reality of my world that I'm living in and the fact that I'm trying to tell this information about Michael Jackson. I'm still trying to do this while I'm dealing with this other reality. It's fucking madness and shit, right? And it doesn't stop. My madness don't stop while I'm trying to do this, and I can't find the time because, like I said, my main shit, as you see, I don't come here. I hardly do any of this shit because I don't have the fucking time because I have real fucking shit to do. But so anyways, and so okay, now let me try and get back to this. Hopefully he doesn't stop and I can just get through the shit here. Okay, so like I'm showing you, the first audition at Motown is July 23rd. Okay, no, sit down. See, now he's anxious and shit too. My dad's getting anxious. I gotta get through this shit now too, okay? So that's one. Okay, first audition at Motown is July 23rd, okay? Okay, so right here, July 12th, July 17th, okay? So let's say that it ends on the July 17th. So what they're saying is how the real story of the Jackson 5 getting introduced to Motown. They're saying that from when Bobby Taylor is first introduced to them, like when this started, because Marshall Thompson just told you that it was him who actually introduced Michael to Bobby Taylor. It was him. He was the guy that was hanging out with the Jacksons, and he was the guy playing on this, where the Jacksons, they're the ones that knew each other, so they had built this relationship, and Marshall's the one that introduces them to Bobby Taylor. So now they're saying that out of the blue, Bobby Taylor just steals that band from his friend Marshall, you know, just says, well, I'm taking them to Motown. I'm not, you know, it's a weird story about the reality. That's what I'm saying. Now, look at the story of the realest story of how they've told us the realest stuff about Bobby Taylor and the Susan DePass stuff, right? So we've heard that story about that's how the Jacksons actually get to Motown, and they get there and they do that audition on July 23rd. But so the real thing, if they did that audition on July 23rd, they're saying that Bobby Taylor met the Jacksons in Chicago like 1 week before that, or he meets them maybe 2 weeks, but then he's got 1 week, then after they're there, and then somehow he gets them to go, he takes them to, first he gets them to meet Susan DePass, then they all go to Detroit, because that audition tape is done in Detroit. Okay, so now Detroit's a couple hundred miles away. It's not like going from Gary, Indiana to Chicago. That's a simple little thing. To go to Detroit, you got to go to Detroit. You know, it's a bigger thing, which of course they're trying to do that stuff. So that's not that big of a deal either, but they do that. But we're talking about this takes place within the period of like 1 week. Hey, look at how quick it actually happened. Bobby Taylor got him, met Susan DePass. They get to go to Motown. They do an audition. They're doing an audition like, you know, after they do this billing with Bobby Taylor. So 1 week. 1 week after they do this billing with Bobby Taylor, they're literally auditioning at Motown. And who's Bobby Taylor? You know, and he did that. He took the guys right from Marshall Thompson. It's a weird thing of how it developed that way. And when you look at the actual timing and how the things are structured, when you actually introduce Marshall Thompson into the picture, and once you know that his story of what's going on, there's much more of the story of what's taking place here. So I got a couple more things I'm going to show you. Let me see if there's anything more left on this piece here, though.
Go play in them little group, them little clubs.
You were taking them around to the little house?
In the club.
Really? The little kids?
He's singing and run them out the back door.
Oh, wow.
So one day, Purvis Spann, the blues man, he loved that group. Okay, and he said, let's bring them in. They came in they won at the talent show in Chicago. So whoever wins the talent show get a chance to play on the big show at the Regal Theater. So they won the talent show, so they end up on the big show opening up for us at the Regal Theater.
So they were on the same show with you?
Right. They opened up for me.
Opened up.
You know.
Okay, so So that's like the part of that. So now I'm going to go back. There's a couple other things I want to show you here with Marshall Thompson. I just skipped it now back to earlier in the video because I've got it out of thing. First, I wanted to show you the Bruce Swedien stuff. So now I'm going to show you a couple of the other Marshall Thompson stuff. Let me show you here. It's like I said, I'm not even sure what it is here. As he starts talking, I'll remember. Okay, here we go.
And that's where we got our sound from, too. Listening to those different...
Okay, this is actually... So Marshall Thompson right there, he said, this is where we got our sound from. Because now, right here, he's talking about his band and how they developed, right? So this is what Marshall Thompson said. And now, this is what I'm telling you about a part of how Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy, and now listen how he showed you the connection of one of the things about what I say is that it comes through a guy that was in Joe Jackson's band, a guy named Pookie Hudson, who then left and started his own band called the Spaniels, okay? And like right here, they're showing VJ. Okay, the Spaniels was on the VJ label also and stuff too, because they're talking about the Dells right there, whatever. And so, but also the VJ, that was, the Spaniels was on VJ. So that's what I'm saying. The connections about, it's crazy. It's too much for me to even talk about when I start talking about it. But so right there, this is Marshall Thompson. This is what I was saying is that Berry Gordy would have been influenced in his life by Pookie Hudson and the band the Spaniels. And when he would have found out that the Spaniels, when he would have found out that in the Spaniels formerly was in Joe Jackson's band, that Pookie Hudson from the Spaniels, when Berry Gordy would have found out that that guy was in Joe Jackson's, that would have been a really strong connection, because I believe Joe Jackson knew Berry Gordy from earlier than that when they were boxing. So Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy knew each other. Then when Pookie Hudson hit, and he found out then that Pookie Hudson was from Gary, Indiana, that's where his friend Joe Jackson was from, and then he found out that Pookie Hudson was actually formerly in Joe Jackson's band. That's what I'm saying, how the development of the relationship started with Joe Jackson. So then later on in life, when they came across each other, they had a lot of interest to talk about. Like when he said, "Hey, Barry, how'd you, your boxing?" "Oh, yeah, I didn't do, yeah, I tried to get into music." And and he started talking about Pookie Hudson, and then Berry Gordy's like, "Yeah, I love Pookie Hudson, the Spaniels, they're great." And because this is before Berry Gordy's got Motown, this is all way before all that stuff. This other shit is taking place. And that's what I'm saying, is that sometime Joe Jackson had met Berry Gordy previously, and they had built a relationship, and I'm showing you how it developed is very similar to what Marshall Thompson is talking about right here. So Marshall Thompson says right here how his sound developed, okay, now watch.
Groups, you know, like the Dells, the Spaniels.
Okay, the Spaniels. So right there he says the Spaniels, and it says right there, the Spaniels, 1957. That's what I'm saying. So that's before Michael Jackson's even born. And it says Pookie Hudson right there. It says, you can't see it maybe in this picture, but it says 1957. Okay, so, but the Spaniels had got a hit like in 1954. That's what I'm saying about the stuff with the Spaniels and stuff. And this is taking place before, Michael's born, but this is also taking place like the Spaniels right here, this picture, 1957 and through the 50s. That's taking place at the same time of when Berry Gordy's writing songs for Jackie Wilson. And Jackie Wilson's an artist on the Brunswick label, okay? So, and that's how all this stuff happens, it all happens because Smokey Robinson is going to audition for Jackie Wilson's label, and they turn him down. But then Berry Gordy, because Berry Gordy was writing songs for Jackie Wilson, Berry Gordy was at the place, and so then he heard, and then Berry Gordy introduced himself to Smokey Robinson. But that's how it all met, and that's how it all happened. And the Jackie Wilson's a big part of it, and that's what I'm saying though, is that Berry Gordy was in the music scene before he starts Motown. It's before the Motown stuff that all this other stuff is occurring and stuff. But they know people, and Berry Gordy's in the music scene. He's just not the owner of Motown, but he is in the music scene before the Motown stuff. Like I'm saying, and so was Joe Jackson. And Joe Jackson had a band, and in his band was this guy, Pookie Hudson. Let me show you that really quick right here. So right here, see it says the Jackson 5. Right above that, I'm not going to zoom in, like I said, I'm not going to mess with the zoom. I'm going to read this part to you. This is Joe Jackson's biography. If you want to look up Joe Jackson's Wikipedia. And right above where it says the Jackson 5, I'm going to read to you here, there's some part here. It says, during the early 1950s, Jackson briefly performed with his own blues band, the Falcons, playing guitar. Despite their efforts, the Falcons did not get a recording deal and subsequently broke up after one of their members, Thornton Pookie Hudson, founded his own band in 1952. That band would go on to become a successful doo-wop group named the Spaniels, okay? So that's in Joe Jackson's biography, and it's telling you right there. The Pookie Hudson was in Joe Jackson's group in the Falcons. So when they talk about Joe Jackson, so that's what I'm saying, is after Joe Jackson was a boxer, he had his music group, but his music group was actually kind of legit, and they were trying to get signed, but they didn't get signed. But you know what they did do? They met all those other people. He would have met all the other people in the music scene. It's one of those things. He knows a lot of people. And then one of the guys from his band actually became a somebody, a real somebody. This was the guy's a big deal. The Spaniels with the doo-wop group, the Spaniels and Pookie Hudson, that's a big deal. And like I said, he's a big enough deal that Marshall Thompson here, when he's talking about bands that he was trying to resemble himself to formulate a style, one of the bands that he was formulating a style to resemble was the Spaniels, okay? So Marshall Thompson said he was doing that, and what happens is what you find out is that Pookie Hudson, they're accredited him as one of the guys that's one of these founding members guys who credited it just as creating the doo-wop sound. He's one of the real first people to which you have one main lead singer with the other doo-wop singers in the back, okay? So Pookie Hudson and the Spaniels were performing doo-wop music in the 50s. Before Berry Gordy starts Motown in like 1960, okay? That's what I'm saying. So Berry Gordy had to have been like, just how Marshall Thompson said he was following the Spaniels, Berry Gordy had to have known who the Spaniels was, because when you find out his music style basically emulates this band, and this band has a guy that was formerly the band he was in before this band. He was in Joe Jackson's band. That's what I'm saying. This is how close the connections are to Joe Jackson and connecting back to Berry Gordy through similar interest and similar friends, that you find out that there are connections which nobody ever talked about, and that's how Michael was given to that family. But that's what nobody ever understands when they, like, what are you even talking about? And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to explain to him. I'm saying I'm trying to explain to you how Michael was given to them. But it's a big history. It's a big story. And it's like we're talking about stuff that went back then. I don't got all the information. Like I said, Marshall Thompson was about to tell me how he met Joe Jackson and he got cut off. I don't know that. I'm not the actual guy. I'd like to be able to speak to them and get the real answers, but I don't have all the information.
The Harvey and the Moon Glows, you know.
So right there, there's Pookie Hudson with this guy, the Tom Merrill's guy and stuff, right? So there's the Pookie Hudson guy right there. That's what I'm thinking. He's a big deal.
Those are our groups that we love. And the Flamingos, with Solly McGill, right? You know, Solly McGill used to sing with us on time to time, and he went to Solly went to he was with the Flamingos. He left the
So see, it's like I can't remember how far I wanted to go into this, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that off right there. I'm going to go and skip over to this next part. I know there's one more thing here, so let's go ahead and pick it up from here, and let's see what he was talking about. I know there's one other thing I wanted to show you here, so let's go and see what this is talking about.
What you do to me, but in '68 you guys made the charts for the first time, and Eugene is singing lead. Right. And then you guys seem to have found your sound. Mm-hmm. So you put everything together. But Eugene is also writing. He was dating a young lady named Barbara Acklin. And Barbara had a song. She had a couple of hits. One was "Am I the Same Girl?" Right. Which became Soulful Strut. Written by? Written by Eugene. By Eugene.
Okay, so the guy that wrote that song, Eugene Record, he's in the Shy Lights band. Okay, so this is a big deal. So, and then see the song that he's writing for that girl, she's on the Brunswick studio. So now this is when he's saying you finally have found your sound. The Shy Lights, this is when they signed with Brunswick. So this is like 1967. They released their first song with them, I think, in '68. So this is right before the Jacksons go to Motown. This is another thing about what I'm saying about that this Marshall Thompson guy had serious connections, and not just serious connections, he had serious connections directly to the people who were directly involved in how I'm saying that Michael Jackson was given to the Jacksons through Berry Gordy and stuff. And watch, I'm going to show you how they have all the connections. But that's what I'm saying, is like he's connected directly to them too. And he's the guy that introduces Michael to the Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers. There's this weird stuff that's like, well, how'd all this stuff play out and stuff? You know, it's really weird.
Record. Eugene wrote that. Right. Now Barbara had a hit song called "Love Makes a Woman." Right. On Brunswick. Right. Love Makes Woman was written by Eugene Record.
Here you go again.
And he called me in there and got Squirrel and Maria together. And we went in there and sung the background.
And that's you, the Shy Lights, right. Marshall singing background.
Right.
Okay, so right there, so like what he said is that for this other girl that's singing on the Brunswick, that one of the guys from his band is writing her songs, okay? And because of that, and then he's also dating her. The guy that's in his band is dating the girl. That's what I'm saying. When you actually get the real details, it's crazy. There's real serious details, but you have to understand, okay, so what he's saying is that the guy that's in his band, the Eugene Record, I believe his name is, Eugene is dating the girl that's on Brunswick, and he's writing her songs. So then because of that, he had the entire band of the Shy Lights perform background vocals for the something Arklin, whatever her name is, and stuff for the girl, okay, right? So that's what they're talking about right here, right? But then there's another part to what I'm going to show you. So what he said right here is that the entire band, the Shy Lights, performed background vocals on her album, okay? But now listen where that goes.
Now, in '67, Jackie Wilson sang one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all.
Okay, so now in '67, Jackie Wilson, okay, so this is Jackie Wilson, 1967, okay, like I said, this is still before the Jacksons go to Motown and stuff, right? So this is what I'm going to show you, is that, look at how this connection here happens right here. This is what I'm going to show you. Now, Jackie Wilson, the original songwriter for Jackie Wilson, the guy that was writing all of his songs, his main songs that made him a big star in the 50s, was Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy, the guy of Motown Records, Berry Gordy. A lot of people, if you don't know the real history, before Berry Gordy makes Motown, he's writing songs. He's a songwriter. And he's actually the main songwriter for Jackie Wilson, and they're on the Brunswick label. Okay, in Detroit. Okay, they're on the Brunswick label in Detroit. But Brunswick is a big record label, because that's what happens is when they're showing you the Brunswick label, when Marshall Thompson's talking about Brunswick, that's Brunswick in Chicago. When I was looking up on the other thing, when they're talking about Marshall Thompson. And then when they show you on the record, it says Brunswick in New York City, you know? But that's how it is with these big companies. There's a lot more. There's so much going on and stuff. You actually have to know, and it's tricky to find out the actual real history, okay? But so Jackie Wilson, okay, Jackie Wilson is the guy that Berry Gordy was writing songs for, okay? And everything happened. Like I said, Jackie Wilson was Smokey Robinson's favorite artist. The reason Smokey Robinson goes to audition for this at the record label where he went to audition, the reason he went there is because that was Jackie Wilson's record label, okay? That's why he goes there. But those people turned him down. But at that place, this is where the whole thing, that's in August of 1957. This is when this event happens, when Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy. And when they meet, because what happened is Berry Gordy was turning in some songs. So he happened to be there at the record studio that day, and he saw Smokey Robinson's audition, and he saw him get turned down, but he knows he's trying to build a record company, so for what he's trying to build, he sees, hey, that's what I want. And so Berry Gordy goes out and introduces himself to Smokey Robinson, and that's where everything starts. That's the beginning of Motown. Everything starts right there, is in August of 57. And like I say, what you find out when you do the real investigation is Michael Jackson, then, just look at the simple facts and the dates, you know, Your Honor. If Smokey Robinson meets Berry Gordy in August of 1957, Michael Jackson is conceived on August 29th of 1958. So basically we're talking about 1 year, exactly 1 year after Berry Gordy meets Smokey Robinson. Basically 1 year after that event happens, Michael Jackson's born. Okay, that's what, and so then what you find out is, what I find out is then I find out I've got video evidence. I've got Diana Ross claiming to be in love with Smokey Robinson. And here's the kicker. Not only is she in love with Smokey Robinson at the exact time of when she would have gotten pregnant by Smokey, when Michael would have gotten conceived, right? I've got Diana Ross confessing to being in love with Smokey Robinson at that exact time, but not only is she in love with him, she's literally able to sleep in his house because she's best friends with Smokey Robinson's niece, who also lives in Smokey Robinson's house. So Diana Ross sleeps over at her best friend Sharon's house, who happens to be Smokey Robinson's niece. And so when Diana Ross is sleeping over at her friend Sharon's house, she's actually literally sleeping over at Smokey Robinson's house. And she's proclaiming later in life to have been in love with Smokey Robinson at that time. And what you find out is that that's the time that Michael Jackson's actually conceived. And Diana Ross is proclaiming to be in love with him and sleeping in his house at that time. Okay? People are acting like I don't have facts and I don't have evidence backing up my story. It's like, I got fucking evidence. I got the real shit. People are just fucking don't want to see the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. They all want to stick their head in the sands and be the fucking stupid slaves they are, like Michael Trapson, no talent, loser, thieving scumbag, fucking dressing up like a woman, transvestite motherfucker, can't get a fucking real job in the real world, so he has to go and steal from Michael Jackson and proclaim himself to be a Michael Jackson fan while he steals from all Michael Jackson's talent and all Michael Jackson's fans for a living. Screw Michael Trapson. What a loser, man. What a no talent. You ever gonna see Michael Trapson put a video together like this? Like a real fan video? Real investigation with real knowledge? Never. He is nothing. He is a joke. Frickin' he's a woman is what he is. Transvestite and shit. Okay, so this is, so what I was saying is, this is Jackie Wilson. Like, what he's talking about right here is Jackie Wilson, okay? So, like I said, you got to understand how big a deal who Jackie Wilson is. And then like I said, Berry Gordy was writing songs for Jackie Wilson, and the whole story about what I was just telling you, the Jackie Wilson story about how he's involved in all this stuff, right? And so, now what he tells you right here, now listen to this.
All time, because that was the summer of love. Smokey had More Love. We had Brown Eyed Girl from Van Morrison.
Right.
The Temptations, You're My Everything. Okay, and another Roger Penzabene.
Another big one.
Yeah, big hit by Roger Penzabene and Norman Whitfield. And you guys had your Price of Love in that summer, and Jackie Wilson's Higher and Higher. Squirrel sang background on that.
Well, the whole Starlight group sang.
Oh, the whole group sang?
Right, that's the whole group.
Oh, I didn't. Wait a minute. I didn't know that. The whole group is singing.
That's the whole group. The whole Starlight group.
Fantastic.
Okay, see right there? So, the whole Shylight group sang background vocals for Jackie Wilson in 1967. So, at the exact time in history when the Jacksons are getting introduced to Bobby Taylor from this guy right here. Okay, this guy, that's what I'm saying is, but this stuff is crazy. The actual dates and stuff, it's weird, this stuff, but what I'm showing you though is that there's much more going on before the stuff about what they ever told you. There's a lot more going on. So this guy, he just told you that his band, his entire band is on the Brunswick label and is performed as background vocals on Jackie Wilson's Higher and Higher. That song, that's a big hit and shit, right? So the background vocals on that song is the Shylights, okay? That's what he's just told you and shit, right? And that's in 1967, okay? So he's working with